But thank you all for coming again. Many of you have been before, and I really, really appreciate this core group of supporters and members who've started to join us and help us think these things through. And to many of you who've helped us do things, that's incredibly important too. I'm going to go through some of that in our updates. Today we've got a fantastic mix. So there's academics, researchers, practitioners from all over the world, and fair trade organizations and bodies. We've got some of our reviewers, but they will be nameless, of course. And I think the most important thing is that we're building a kind of conversation and a strategy, and we want to go through some of that today. And we've obviously got a lot of challenges, so you'll hear some hard challenges that we faced too, from our keynote, Roger, who I'll introduce in a minute, and also from Ellie and I, who are working on it. Let's poodle on with the slides. We've got slides because that's the way of the world. And of course, as always, we will do slides, this information, and whatever is recorded. I hope you've all been asked to approve that in a short follow-up report, because there are many people who now apologize and say they're not able to come, and we do know that people appreciate our follow-up reports. So for those of you who are new, and there are certainly plenty of people on the list I didn't recognize, welcome to the group that we call the Society of the Journal of Fair Trade, who are members and supporters and contributors, people who write for us, people who review, people who guide us. And the Journal of Fair Trade is a relatively new journal. We've been going since 2019. And it's an unusual journal. It's really aiming to cover all sorts of topics, approaches, ideas, practices, theories about making trade fair. And we've used a very broad concept for fair trade, and everything that is social, that can meet social and environmental challenges that we all face. So it isn't just about certification. Certification is a tool, and it can be applied to any kind of business, service, practice, or engagement. It's also a Diamond Open Access journal, and I'm not going to talk about that because our keynote today is Roger, who helped us set up and is going to introduce us to the world of open access and its thrills and challenges. But the essence of it is that it's free to use, free to download, free to share, free to read, and authors also do not have to pay. Which may surprise you, but that happens a lot. Okay, thanks. But first, we're going to give you a bit on our numbers and a little bit of an update before we have our keynote. Sorry, can you?
Yeah.
Next.
So
next. Yeah. Ellie, you need to be a bit louder, I think. At least maybe I need to make you louder. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Hopefully everyone can hear me. So hi, and I work with Pauline as support for the Journal of Fair Trade and membership. And we're really excited, like the journal being Diamond Open Access is a great thing in terms of, as Pauline said, it being zero charge to readers and also zero charge to authors. And so it's been a really big thing. It started in January 2021, and since then we've had really good statistics on usage and readership of the Journal of Fair Trade. So you can see that January 2021 was when we started as open access. Prior to that, the journal was very new. It launched in 2018. So 2019 was only 70 in usage. 2020 was 83. 2021 with the Diamond Open Access saw close to 13,000. 2022 was 17,000. Now, for this 2023, we've got an estimate of 25,000 for readership usage, and we've got actual physical stats for the first half of the year from January to June, and we can see that for that solid period, we'd exceeded the 2022 first half of the year. So we can see that we're running above the read of 2022 a little, which is really, really good news. We get the usage data from two publishing platforms. So we've got Science Open and JSTOR, which are both platforms where the Journal of Fair Trade is available to view for and published for reading, and so that's a really big kind of bit of news that we're doing well on readership and global reach. On global reach, we looked at the stats, the combined stats from both platforms, Science Open and JSTOR, and we wanted to kind of look at the top 10 countries of readership. So in total across the entire world, readership, the top 10 you can see down the left-hand side, largely, and in fact in almost entirely, they are UK, Canada, and USA, and also EU countries. So these probably match up with, you know, our authors and people involved currently as members, and so we're also really pleased to see that we do have quite a lot of increase in Global South access of the Journal of Fair Trade. So you can see in the top 10 countries, actually India comes in as number 7. So we're really pleased about that, and think that it certainly, the fact that the Journal of Fair Trade is Diamond Open Access does make a difference to Global South countries accessing and reading the journal. On to the next slide. We wanted to look further at the Global South and how it is accessing the Journal of Fair Trade. So we looked again at the combined data from both of the publishing platforms, those two platforms being Science Open and JSTOR. So combined together, the number of countries in the Global South that had accessed the Journal of Fair Trade was 115, and the estimated number of institutions in the Global South, so that would be academic institutions or educational institutions accessing the Journal of Fair Trade that are in the Global South, is 687, so approximate to what we had on the previous slide of 600. Kind of looking into it further, we wanted to know, you know, who are these countries that are accessing the Journal of Fair Trade, you know, which are the top countries accessing the Journal of Fair Trade. So we ran a report, and so you can see here on the visuals, you have a bar chart on the right, and that's the data from Science Open on the top 10 Global South countries accessing JOFT. Then on the left, you've got the same data, which is from JSTOR, and their data on which were the top 10 countries in the Global South. So there's pretty much, it might be a little difficult to compare, but from my looking at it, I can see that they're pretty much the same countries and similar proportions. India comes out by far the largest. And then there are a couple of anomalies between them where one, for example, Science Open picks up readers from another country, Argentina and Thailand, whereas JSTOR has actually picked up reader access from from the Philippines and Nigeria. So all in all, we wanted to combine those to sort of look at all the countries in total. So our headline figure of 115 countries in the global south, that's where we've included both Science Open and JSTOR together to get a really good feel of how we're reaching out across the global south and how the Journal of Fair Trade is being read. Those are really the big things. Pauline,
Good. I think let's see if anybody has any questions. You can just raise your hand or you can speak up, because we're a group with most people are familiar. Melanie, I can see your hand.
Oh, she's on mute.
No, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you just clarify the terms user and access? Right. So the data that are coming in, are they clicks on the site? Are they measuring how long someone's reading, actually, perusing the site? So the first data you said users, these data are access.
Mm-hmm. So just having a quick look back, we've got, so the usage is when we speak about usage, we are referring to actual downloads of articles. So that's how we're assessing whether it's being accessed. And that's what, so the usage is an article download, and we refer to that as access to the Journal of Fair Trade. So it could be one article, just one article out of one of the editions. There isn't a measure on anything finer, as far as I know, in terms of timing of access, but yeah.
Well, the other thing is that the two other sort of interesting pieces of data, we just decided we would look closer at the data this time because it's starting to become very interesting. But the one is on the Science Open site, you can see how many people have actually read an article. I've not actually yet checked whether it's the same as downloading. So more people could have read them than download them, because you don't have to download it to read it. So there's more work to be done here. If anyone's got an intern who would love to do this, this would be brilliant, or a master's student or something, that would be perfect. And also what people are reading, you can tell exactly what people are reading on the Science Open site because it clocks up. It's like a little clock. So next to each article, you'll see, you'll see how many articles, how many people have read an article. So that's quite cool. We haven't collated that one yet, but we do keep an eye on the most popular articles, which I have reported on before. Then the other really cool thing is there's two types of data that we get. One is like downloads, but then the other is geolocations, right? So this is the data-driven world we live in. But that's a really amazing read, and I always look at it because there are virtually no countries on Earth that do not, somebody in that country does not access or look at or download something. But on JSTOR, the information is incredibly clear because it, as it is on Science Open, but you can tell which are universities and educational institutions because there's a tagging or a categorization, and who knows who the rest are. Sometimes they have a generic tagging, we don't count them. But actually, from our perspective, for now, the most interesting is how many educational institutions, universities, colleges, teachers, researchers who are hosted somewhere are getting onto our site and looking at our work. And I thought that was interesting because if we were going to design, which I'd quite like to consider as one of the things we all try and do together, a sort of research and joining the dots on digital learning and things like that, and access to information on fair trade, I think that starts to become very important. So we were looking at that, and you can see right to the name. Obviously, you don't know who it is, and we're not about to start drilling down on IP addresses because I'm sure there is lots of hazard in that to investigate how to do that. But it's all there. I hope that answers your question. Any other hands up? Okay. Are we good?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Roger. So I have Roger to thank for so many things, but one of them is that he nagged me about doing this journal for at least 3 years before I thought about it, but he was very persistent. But he is the founder of Pluto Journals, and I'm so delighted to introduce you and thank you for doing this, Roger. He's a visionary radical publisher, first with Z Books, then with Pluto Books, and he was the founder of Pluto Journals. And Roger, this is an important audience because people listen and are activists in their own right. And we have Mike King to thank for having listened to what we need and actually putting his elbow to the task sometime after our previous meeting. But I want to just introduce Pluto Journals because the Journal of Fair Trade is part of a family of journals. Next. And Pluto Journals is like this David and Goliath thing, which I'm sure Roger will speak more about. Small, independent, London-based, but with editors, authors, readers from around the world. And you've seen our snapshot, and we're tiny. Journal of Fair Trade is tiny compared to some of the other journals. Some of them are very, very well established. I'll show you their names in a second. And it's radical, scholarly, and the subject matter is really cutting edge social sciences. Pluto Journals is the first social science publisher to make the full transition from subscription system, you know, where you sold a subscription to a library, to open access. And I'm not going to go more about that because today is the day we thought it would be really important to delve into what are the thrills and the challenges of open access. And nobody can do that better than Roger. Next, I don't know if I'm able to do it. Yes, this is the list of journals. All of them you can find on Pluto Journals, and the links that you can see here on the Pluto Journals website will take you straight into each of these journals. And the subject matter, next, Ellie, Arabic and Islamic studies. We've got a little cluster of those. I'm not going to go into it. If you're interested in this, you can go find them, but their visuals are nice. Global and international studies, state crime, political economy, global fault lines. Next. Studies about the global south, north-south, decolonial issues, groundings, fair trade, diversity, social justice, welfare, the gig economy, disability, intersectionality. We've discussed intersectionality on this in this group before. And next, legal, labor, and employment studies. Really just incredibly interesting range of subjects. Okay. And I won't say more about Pluto Journals because that's Roger's job. Next. So Roger, over to you.
Pauline, thank you very much.
We can take the slide off, I think, so that everyone can see. You could stop sharing for a moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we can see you much nicer. Welcome, Roger.
Okay, Pauline, thank you very much, and for that very nice introduction. What I want to do this afternoon, it's my afternoon, I'm not sure it's everybody else's. I want to talk about the broader system in which the Journal of Fair Trade exists. And in particular, I want to talk about the funding system of scholarly journals by libraries worldwide. And first, let me apologize to any of the audience who know about this system. On the whole, I find that very few people actually have a good grasp of it because it is a complex arcane system where demand and supply don't work together at all. And it's very well illustrated by the figures you've just seen. a huge increase of the fair trade usage developed when we went open from 70 to 12,000 in a year. And that's just quite extraordinary. But I apologize particularly to Mike King, who I know is in the audience and who did some work for us. And that sometime I'd like to talk to Mike. But I suspect he knows more about this than I do. So let me continue on that basis. Now, very briefly, every major university library has government funds which are used annually to support scholarship. And many of the major libraries have seven-figure funds, which very few people actually know exist. And scholarship generally could not exist without these fundings. And we developed the subscription system solely for journals, or primarily for journals and books, before we moved into digitalization. What I like to call must-have journals in medicine and other disciplines always charge the highest rates. And out of these must-have journals developed the major publishers in this field. There's 5 or 6 of them, and I'll name them. There's John Wiley, Taylor and Francis, there's Springer Nature, Elsevier, and there's Routledge, which is owned by Informa. And of course, there are OUP and CUP, which are major library publishers. And then there's a huge tail behind that of very tiny publishers, all trying to get access to libraries every year to get some of the funds which are available. And these major publishers have always taken about 80% of library funds over a long period of time. And when digitalization came in about just over the turn of this century, the big publishers agreed with the libraries to develop the digital system for them. And with the result that the big publishers were able to take an ever-increasing volume of the funds available, and the smaller publishers got less and less. And I saw that over the second, from 2010 or so, 2012 to 2020, our income diminished year on year, and I could see this happening. And what happened was that, as I say, the big publishers organized the digital systems for the libraries, and the libraries began to get quite upset about this. So what happened was that users started complaining, and we get the beginning of the movement to open access. And open access essentially provides free readership at one end of the spectrum. And that's very important. As that developed, and a whole movement across the global world, particularly in the West, developed for free access. And at the same time, publishers needed to be paid, And so they developed something called APCs, Article Processing Charges. And these were imposed on the authors, and the authors, on the whole, obtained these APCs from the funders of the research. And the social sciences and the humanities, who were authors who were writing, were on the whole not obtaining funds for research for the article they were publishing. And so they were rather left behind in the open movement. Over time, everybody complained about this because these were public funds which were being used, which were being swallowed up by these very small number of publishers. And what we then get is the movement into Diamond open access. And that is also a new movement which allows the author not to have to pay fees. So Diamond open access. And when we moved into this sphere, and I was always very frightened of it because I thought it could ruin the company, we were forced into it because our host was JSTOR, and JSTOR decided to move away from small journal to host small journals. And what happened was that gradually the preferred system of governments and people providing funds became the Diamond process. And I'll just read you a document which was produced recently, and it's quite short. And it says, what is more, a growing chorus of stakeholders, including the Ivy Plus librarians. The Ivy Plus librarians, for those who don't know, are 10, 14 major universities in the United States. The Ivy Plus the Ivy librarians in the US, a coalition of UK-based researchers and the Council of the European Union are calling for an alternative collective funding model for open access. At the same time, a collective funding experiment, as well as conditional open models, such as Subscribe to Open, which neither authors nor readers pay. This is reported as promising results around the globe. And Pluto Journals is in the middle of this. We are members of the Subscribe to Open community, and we are part of the development of funding, which is troubling the library community as a whole. And the question that librarians are asking is, how do we pay for these journals because we don't have appropriate open budgets? And these are difficult questions which we are facing. But what happened to Pluto Journals was that in the first year we went open, our growth of usage, our downloads, increased by 650% across all our journals. Our younger journals increased by 1,000%. That is quite an extraordinary change. And at the same time, our income halved. And so for the last 12 months, I have been speaking to librarians and consortia of librarians to try and improve this situation. And a very interesting time that was. I've been in publishing for 35 years, and during those 35 years, I had never spoken to a librarian. And so it's a very interesting period for myself. Now, what we're doing, we're gradually increasing the number of libraries who are supporting us. And what we need is more librarians, more libraries. So I'm approaching libraries, but I don't know who to approach. So people in this audience who have access to libraries could try and meet their librarians and ask to meet the social science librarian and ask if they would support the journal to which they are attached. Now, librarians like to meet members of their community because they want to support them. So if you can do that, and then let me know, and my email is is attached somewhere, which Pauline will tell you about, and let me know, then I will approach the librarian and give them more information, because we are aiming to create a partnership with libraries. What we want to do is to move out of the idea that libraries are subscribing to us, because libraries get access to all our journals anyway. But we want to create some partnerships with them and then provide an annual report to every library. So the more you can help us, the better for this whole process. Anyway, thank you very much. I hope that is clear. And if there are any...
Yeah, let's open it up for questions.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ellie, we don't need the screen. Well, there are some things you can look up. We'll put this, maybe you can put this in the chat, but the team at Pluto Journals have done an amazing thing under the Pluto Journals /libraries. What librarians need to know, what to, what letters you could write or emails or whatever. But we'll come to that in a minute. Let's see some questions. Ellie, I don't think we need the screen, if that's right. Daryl, I can see you, and then Emma.
Hi. Roger, this is a wonderful presentation, and it helps bring a lot of things together that I think many of us have heard bits and pieces about. I know at my university, Oxford and Cambridge have been talking about partnerships, and it's not entirely clear what that means. So I'm wondering if you could flesh that out a little bit more, and also whether those partnerships vary across different places and different types of institutions.
Okay, let me just, thank you for that question. I'm only beginning to develop the idea of partnerships, and I need some feedback of what we would supply. We would supply information of to the university library of three things. First is of who in the library is using, not who, but the number of usages from the library members, of which often there's quite a few million, are using. So we provide them with specific usage figures. Secondly, we would provide them with authorship figures. Which authors from the university have been using, which authors from Pluto Journals have been using, have been writing. And then the third question is there's usage, there's so what's the third one? I'm getting old, and I always forget the key words. So my apologies. But
Well, global South is one of them. Who's reading it elsewhere? Who's making the most of it? In other words, by supporting your own authors and your own students, who else are you helping?
So who are the authors writing in the university?
Yep.
That's one of the major questions that need to be asked, and there are other questions like that. Now, there will be further. I mean, we have enormous detailed statistics which we need to organize for every library who supports our journals. So that's the beginning of my idea of partnership, and I wish to develop that. So if you've got any ideas, let me know.
Thank you, Daryl. Did you want to come back, Daryl?
No, I'll just wait for more
Okay.
details, and I'll contact
All
my
right.
librarian as well.
Thank you. Emma, you're next. I've only got a few hands.
This is just it's a pleasure to meet you at last, Roger. I've been working journals for 20 years, almost 20 years. And the APCs and the costing, the funding strategies has concerned me for a long time, especially the last 5. I work on a Springer and a Wiley journal. And, you know, the cost, £2,000 an institution pays for each article, at least. So my question is, well, thank you for having Pluto, because it's just opened up the world, hasn't it, to content, and that's what we're all about. But do you see the other big 6, the Wileys, the Springers, P&F, do you think they're ever going to move this way, or are there too much big offices and funding at stake?
There's a lot at stake, and they will take each other over time. They will become even bigger. That's that's the normal practice that is in every industry across the world. So I can't see that changing at the moment. But on the other hand, in talking to librarians, I have found them very interested in supporting small publishers. There's a big concern to small, because we are doing things which the big companies can't do and won't do. So there's a great interest in supporting us. So I have been very surprised and raised my morale a great deal that we have had. It has been such a pleasant journey so far.
Good. I've heard you described as the David Attenborough of the publishing world. So
That's the first
rather
time.
wonderful. I'm going to repeat that. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you. That's it.
More thoughts or questions or challenges you might face that Roger could help with. And Mike, as our resident supporter and expert on this, you're very welcome to join this conversation too.
Yeah, I think there's an awful lot of truth in what Roger said. And even when I was working full time in an academic library, admittedly in nursing, which is a science subject and totally dominated science and medical areas, totally dominated by the big 7 or 8 publishers. And I too share Roger's vision about they're just going to get bigger and bigger. But that leaves the humanities and the social sciences. And they're like the Journal of Fair Trade, like the other, the specialist journals of the Middle East, etc. There's going to be a market for them as well, maybe harder to define. And this new model is worth exploring, certainly. But there is, as you can see by the figures of the Journal of Fair Trade, there are interested people all over the world, and it's a matter of finding how do you value somebody's knowledge? Well, I think we can discuss that forever, I suppose.
Thank you, Mike. I've got another hand. Melanie, I have a hand, and then I saw one and now it's disappeared, but maybe somebody answered.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. I'd like to just tease out a little bit more about why you're finding the support among librarians. What is it that they care about? You talk about just the number of users, right? You talk about authors from their own institutions that they're supporting, and that they're reaching beyond their own users at the university into, a global borderless realm. What else? What is it that they care about in terms of expanding access to whom? The fact that authors aren't being required to pay, does that increase the authorship, the opportunities for scholarship? And just more ideas of what we can leverage and why you're finding the librarians so supportive.
It's a good question, because I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's because librarians have a strong idealistic streak in their makeup. They're there to support their universities, and they're there to support knowledge in the broadest sense of the term. And that idealistic element, I think, is part of their wish to support small publishing enterprises. That is my own conclusion. It would be difficult to put hard evidence on that. But why on earth should they spend time in talking to me? And many of them have done so, given our size and the amount of money that's involved with us. We're a nuisance in a way because we're small, and because we're not dealing with the big boys much easier to do so. So the fact that they have talked to me indicates an idea, a level of idealism that is, I think, part of the makeup of librarians. And when I've had the opportunity of actually face-to-face talks with librarians, that element has been strongly reinforced.
So I'd like to open it up to any more questions that people have, but also if you have, I could imagine some of you who I know in our virtual room here thinking, they're going to tell me they don't have budget for open access, or they've got nothing left, or whatever. So I think it would be quite good if you, I have to hear from people here who have managed to do it, like Leeds recently, or if you hesitation in your mind, let's just practice some of those first off. But the main thing would be take up contact with Roger and the team, and they've all done this and tried it, so they might actually have some real ways they managed to talk to people. But does anybody have any, I'm skeptical because, or I'm afraid, or I'm embarrassed, or I know what they'll say that they want to add, or any insights on how it was done in Leeds? I think people. Anne, are you here? Do you story?
I'm here. I'm just trying to.
Hello, Anne.
I wish I knew how it happened, because I was all ready to write the letter to our librarian. Then I was told it was done, but I think it was because the editors of the Journal of Social Justice and Disability Studies were on the list. They were on the Pluto Journals list, so I think they did the hard work. But I've just put something in the chat here about the Knowledge Equity Network that our VC are now exiting VC, so fingers crossed it stays. She set up with the University of Pretoria, and then there's a map on the link that I've sent you of other universities that are part of this commitment. So I don't know how much money is in there, I really don't, but I know that there's this commitment to much more open access and what they call it, the Knowledge Equity Network. And I know it's partly linked to us doing some digital education work with Pretoria as well. So I think it's having that agenda about impact, isn't it? And then if you can tap
That's a
into
very
that.
concrete, that's a very concrete thing. Thank you, Anne, because if you knew that your university was partnered or cared or had links or shared programs with universities in anywhere, we can probably, for all of the Pluto journals, we can fish that data. I just showed you how we did it for one journal, and we had more than 600, global South universities accessing. So, and we're tiny. We're a small fish in the Pluto journals goldfish bowl, so to speak. One more round, and then we'll thank Natalie. Anybody else? I'm finding it hard to spot things because I'm on 2 pages. So there you go. Okay, I think we're good. Well, thank you, Roger. I know there's a lot of challenges. Let's put up the slide because it's got Roger's wonderful picture and his email on there. He's got that. Could you put up that slide?
Added Roger's email into the chat just so that you can see.
Oh, it's in the chat as well.
All
right.
So that
up one. Yeah, there we go. Roger VZ at plutojournals.com. Nice and easy. And I would say feel free to reach out. Oh, thank you, Roger. I know that you. Oh, I've got a hand. Daryl.
Daryl.
Yeah. Pauline, I was wondering if I just could ask Roger a quick question that I know my librarian is going to ask me, and that's about how many of the journals, the Pluto journals, are in Scopus.
Oh, I can answer that question not immediately because I have to look it up. But we do have journals in Scopus. You have to have you have to be at least 3 years old before you can get into Scopus. Scopus takes 12 months before they make a decision. We've got half a dozen journals in process, and we've got about 4 or 5 journals already in Scopus.
Yeah, that's just an issue because there's more and more pressure, even moving into the social sciences, for people to be public in Scopus index journals, right?
In the indexing of journals and the quality of your journals are more and more an important process. So we, for instance, the DOAJ, which is the which indicates quality, you need membership of this organization. And I'm just trying to remember what it stands for, DOAJ, but it's one of the key components of being an open publisher.
Thank you.
We can share the list in our notes of which of the journals are on Scopus.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
So Roger, thank you so much. I'm sure you'll hear from people. I think the only thing I wanted to add that you didn't mention, and I was hoping you would, was that you have discovered that a lot of libraries have a little window in December where they have a bit of budget left, even if they don't have an open access
Well, I
budget
can.
line.
Shall I develop that slightly?
Yes, do, because I mean we're in November.
Yes,
right?
yes. Well,
so the iron is hot, or might be hot for another year. Okay.
Very few libraries, as far as I can make out, have specific budgets for open access, particularly for Dharma open access. But what happens is that some of these budgets are underspent, and by December they're thinking of what can they spend the underspent money on. So the money that's left over is then spent in the last 3 weeks of December. And I'm told, and I haven't got it, I'm told on people who do know these things, that 25% of the total budget of libraries is spent in the last 3 weeks of December. So not till the end of the year do you find out whether you have been, whether you're on their list or not.
Thank you, Roger. That's perfect. All the more reason if people think they can walk in a door in the next few weeks, they should be in touch. So thank you so much. I thank you so, so much, Roger. I know you're super busy and we'll let you go unless you want to stay for as long as you can and listen.
Okay.
And we will press on if that's all right. Thank you.
Oh, gosh.
All right.
We have a new, yeah, Christine. Christine, apologies. I only just saw that you were waiting to join the meeting.
I tried to let her in.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Part 2.
Yeah.
Strategies and survival. Da-da-da-da.
There we are.
Next. So we've got an hour and we want to spend about 10 minutes, which is a few more updates, if that's all right. And then the main part of this, the rest of the meeting is a discussion on, are we really more than the sum of our parts? Because we're a lot of parts. And I'll start this session, this part of the agenda, with an apology because I wrote a paper and then couldn't quite see it through. And so for me, this discussion is really important to see whether the paper that some of you were patiently and politely reminding me that you hadn't received, reminding me that I hadn't sent it, is because I lost my nerve. And so part of this is totally kind of grounding this idea that we could do more together and be much more effective and influential, etc., with an actual discussion about it before there's any more. So that's what we'll be doing for most of our last, 45 minutes or so. And we've got a few more updates. So let's move on to the updates, more updates on membership and partnerships.
Yeah.
So basically, how would I describe our strategy? Apart from the things that Roger said about quality and good content and observing good practice in reviews and so on and so forth, we're trying to gather and make sure there are sufficient resources for the Journal of Fair Trade to survive. A combination of members' dues and donations. Many of you have given us money over the whole period, not just since open access, for which we're really grateful. And then supporting Pluto Journals in this push for subscribe to open subscriptions, because what goes into Pluto Journals comes through to our costs and our production as well. And the other part of this is content and partnerships and collaboration. So I wanted to talk about those two things. But first of all, we'll talk about resources. So we'll go on to the next slide and I'll let Ellie talk through the membership. So the original idea that I had was that since we're not hosted, we don't belong to anybody, that we should nevertheless be owned. Those of you who know my track record in fair trade, ownership has always been rather important to me, who owned what. But whichever way you look at it, I thought I would share this time. This is actually what we need to survive. This is our basic work, the production costs, the people in the team who are paid, Science Open hosting, and work trying to do the S2O library outreach, which Roger has just described. There's a team of people doing that. And I thought we should share how far away we are, just so that you know. So Ellie, over to you for the next couple of slides.
So, oops, I have this click forwards. So
how far away?
Yeah, so Pauline mentioned that there are two parts. Well, there are two parts in terms of individuals and organizations getting involved as members and providing donations. And so just looking at that first, we've had a lot of support from individuals since the very beginning when we started in 2018, and we really had quite a push. It was individual annual members who signed up largely, and we also connected. Aside from that, we did connect with a lot of people on LinkedIn, which has been a really great thing, which Pauline's LinkedIn is absolutely huge. So a lot of kind of interest generated there initially, and from that we had individuals sign up. We did start a new membership system in October 2021. So for these figures, I'm just looking at what we have gained in terms of membership since 2021. We did actually have memberships prior to that, which were individuals were really really grateful for everyone who's been on board since the very beginning, 2018. So the memberships that we currently have, we've got 27 members, and these are, it's a mix of individuals and organisation social enterprise. Very small slice of that organisation social enterprise. Interestingly, a lot of the individuals are actually part of very interesting groups and fair trade organisations already. So we do have some really good support from you as members, and I suppose to say before anything, you know, you as members are absolutely, you know, massively valuable, you know, more than the membership dues, which we really appreciate greatly. You and yourselves are really beneficial and valuable to us, just for your collaboration and where you get involved as kind of you, for example, those who may have been involved in reviewing or putting forth authors or other activities. So I'll talk about that in the next slide quickly, but to look at the numbers, we've got 27 members, and they brought in membership dues £780, and also donors we've had £71. On the location of members, you can see that on the left side, largely it's UK, Canada and US, which equates back to the data that we've been seeing with usage of the Journal of Fair Trade itself. So that, again, it's largely EU, US, UK and Canada. You know, we do have a big readership in the Global South, and obviously we're really happy to have that as a starting point with those individuals and institutions. In terms of them becoming members themselves, it may be that there's the other route, which is the S2O, which is more suitable for those sort of academic institutions in the Global South. Say, for example, with Leeds, that you've got your partnership with Pretoria, it may be that those kind of Global South organisations or academic institutions get involved in a different way. So we're still looking at the Global South and expanding, and we've got a group who, like in India, we've got a LinkedIn group which has been really useful for contact. Looking again, just obviously in terms of having new members join up and the members that we've had, we've tried to make it as easy as possible for you to join as a member, so that the settings where you go, I'll share the link to the membership link that you can see there, which is the jof.org.uk/membership. In there, the process of joining up, we've made it so that it can be, you choose which membership dues suit you best, whether as an individual or if you're an organisation, social enterprise, or an educational institution, there's a different category. And then again, there's the ethical business membership category. But to make it as accessible, we've put it into pounds, euros and dollars. And we hope that the system is accessible and is easy for you to use. Any of you who have joined up or are willing to join up, please, we appreciate that greatly, having you join as a member. And also, it would be really useful to have your feedback if you experience any trouble at all with the process of signing up as a member in any shape or form. So what I'll do is I'll share the link to the membership page link, and also my email, so that if you do experience any trouble with signing up as a member, you can get in contact with me and I can just help you out with whatever it is that's going on. So we're really, yeah, again, we're really, really pleased to have you on board. And again, you're more valuable than anything in that members have the capacity to, you know, join and support, but also to become a member of the advisory board, and also to suggest topics or enlist authors and contributors. And also, if you wanted, you can put yourself forward as a reviewer. So there are lots of roles. We really want to communicate more with you as members, and so I mean, one of the great benefits is the Pluto Books 40% discount, and I think we're going to look to promote a bit more books that are coming out that are of interest to those in, you know, around in and around the field of fair trade, sustainability, various topics that would be of interest. We're going to look to share those a bit more with members, and it may be great even at some point to have feedback from you as members on, for example, if you've read something, what your review of it might be, then we would post that and share it with other members. Just, we want to kind of generate discussion as well amongst you. So those, in terms of distance from the financial target, obviously we are a long way off. We really do have some of you on board, and we really appreciate that. And all of you who can join and sign up as a member, that would be absolutely fantastic and help greatly, also alongside the contact with your librarian for the S2O subscription. So obviously they're two separate things. But Pauline, shall I?
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
Slide.
We'll whip through that.
Yep.
Thank you. So my first thing to say is we get lots of unsolicited submissions now. When we started, there were very few. I would just go to people that I thought could and should write and had something to say, and ask and ask and ask. And now that I still do that. But we also get lots of unsolicited, and some of them are so brilliant, and we will always love that. But what I've discovered is that building a pipeline for different issues coming up and grouping them helps us plan, helps us find good reviewers and have them ready and available and not take too long. And it helps us produce a much more timely publication schedule. And Emma, who's going to just speak after Anne and FTIS and I, can comment a little bit more on that. But I wanted just to give you a profile of what we've been doing. So current collaborations, I'm going to hand over in a sec to members of the editorial board of the FTIS on our special issue with the Fair Trade International Symposium, based on a theme of fair trade connections, and they could speak to that. But we have one very well advanced. I'm glad you let Christine in. Thank you, Christine. We're working with UNHCR Made 51 on a special issue looking at refugees, vulnerable workers and entrepreneurs, the right to work, and the role of fair trade principles and the Made 51 model. And we've already got about 7 or 8 committed articles, and we've put it out as a call for more. And I'm finding some really interesting dialogues from that call about vulnerable workers and right to work and things like that. So that's ongoing. More are welcome. If you have ideas, you can just contact me. And we're in discussion with Commerce Équitable in France and some other organizations about doing an issue on co-ops and fair trade. What is the real role of and impact of cooperatives or associations or organized producers who are rooted in their community and are democratic and all the things that we value as fair traders, including what are their problems and their challenges. And there's quite a lot of literature on it. I myself worked on some of it at the World Bank for my sins. And I'm putting together that now. So if you're interested in that call or have a group of people you would like to mobilize to write for that, just get in touch. So we're very happy to have more ideas on that collaboration. Let me hand over. Welcome, FTIS folks. And Roberta, I think you're going to give everyone an update.
Just clicking on the right things. I was going to start and then hand over to Roberta. So we're doing a special issue based on the many of the discussions and presentations that were had at the Fairtrade International Symposium that took place in June at the University of Leeds and also online. So it was a hybrid event. So we got in 3 research papers in the middle of early October, and we also have a combination of short research studies and case studies, and 2 or 3 discussion pieces as well. And this sort of reflects some of the conversations that we had at one of these member meetings a while ago about having a diverse range of contributions to the journal. So some of the, as we said, conventional academic research papers, but also discussion pieces and think pieces are going to be part of the special issue as well. And as I say, some of those are coming from a nice mix of academics, but also academics working with practitioners and sometimes students as well. I think what we've trying to achieve is, as I say, this diversity of voices and perspectives, which also I think reflects who was at the event. And we see the Fairtrade International Symposium as sort of an academic conference with a difference, bringing together, as I say, academics and practitioners of different kinds. And Roberta was going to say a little bit about that, how that's working in practice.
Yes, thank you, Anne, and hi everyone. Yes, I think the experience of editing this issue has showed us really a lot of collaboration and co-production knowledge between different actors. So we've seen a really nice continuity between the work that we've been doing at the conference at TIS and the special issue, especially because we had some submissions that were made possible because of in-person encounters that happened at the conference. So we really saw the value of meeting up in person, and we had some serendipitous encounters then that led to a research collaboration. So we really saw the value of linking FTIS with the Journal of Fairtrade, so that people who can attend the conference either in person or online, then have an outlet to not only publish the research but also collaborate with other authors that are within the Fairtrade network to then make the research more robust, especially when the collaboration is between an academic and practitioners. That's something that happened in our submission. So we really saw, a really good example of co-production of knowledge and collaboration, which is all that FTIS is about. So we're very excited, and I think we're gonna talk a bit more about this later on in the final part of this. I'm going to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. So just a few more minutes on collaboration. I did notice that Christine is here and Mathilde from Commerce Équitable. If you wanted to say anything, you're very, very welcome.
Yeah, sorry, I've been struggling with my internet. I blame the wind.
Yeah, we have wind here too. Big wind.
Yeah, no, just to say that I think it'd be great collaboration. I think it's such an interesting area that I think it will draw a wider audience, this bringing in the issue around fair trade and working with vulnerable people, particularly refugees. And obviously, since it's very close to my heart, my work at the moment, I think it's a really good opportunity to bring this academic link into practice, and looking at the models of practice which are being implemented around the world. So I think great to move it forward, and great if we can do it, and I'm looking forward to it being completed. And of course you'll yes, a good thing to be doing. I mean, we're also thinking about doing some sort of live event in Sussex vaguely. We haven't completely finalised it, but we're also thinking about doing some sort of live event around this as well. If we can coordinate together, that would be really great. Supported by the Brighton and Hove Fair Trade Group. Yeah, so that's where we got to with the working with the refugees and the Journal of Fair Trade.
Thank you, Christine. Mathilde, vous êtes là? Are you there?
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm following this meeting for my colleague in holiday. But
Yes.
yes, my colleague told me that you keep in touch after the FTIS, and they told me we are in contact about what you said, Pauline, about the role of the POs and the democratic organization in fair trade system. Mostly, I think on cocoa sector. And then I don't know more. I know that we have some studies maybe on tea sector that it could be interesting to share with you maybe. I don't know if my colleague told about that.
No,
and
but we definitely talked about cocoa.
Okay,
But
okay.
I think that what we'll do is after everyone's back from their holiday, we will develop a call together. So if there's anybody else in our network, we'll put out a note about it, and we'll put out the call, and we can add other products and other dilemmas that in that issue.
Okay. And maybe to know more, I don't know if there is a link with the call for proposal of Journal of Fair Trade, or is it a different discussion?
So we haven't finished and we haven't prepared it yet on the call, exactly how we'll pitch it, so that all the work that you and your colleagues are doing can be part of it. But there are some other projects going on, and I can see Elizabeth has just mentioned something else at Rutgers. Sorry. So we'll what we'll do is we will share it a bit more. We've got about 6 months before we would set a deadline for submission, so we've got time.
Okay.
So, yep. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. All right, let's go. Emma, this is your pick, your moment. So those of you who were here in May will have met Emma, who joined us in May as our journal manager, and as you heard earlier when she spoke, has 20 years in journal publishing. Over to you, Emma. Emma. Can we hear her? Am I the only person who can't hear her?
No, in the chat it says Emma Anderson has left.
Well, we've all got terrible weather, so it may be that it's just really bad weather. Okay. I can't hear her. I can't see her either. Is she in the okay, well, we might have to come back to that. Where is we think she's left? I actually fell on myself for a moment because of the wind, so let me just write her a message.
In the chat, it seems to monitor
She's obviously fell off like me. So I suggest we keep going, and if she's able to come back, that's perfect. But I mean, I can speak to it. Let's go back. I'll speak to it for now. Do you want to go back one? So just to remind people, really, we've got growing portfolio, our guidelines have been revised with the support of FTIS. They're on our website. Emma is very open to emails. Her email is emma.anderson@joft.org.uk. We're very, very keen to find new reviewers, and by showing you what's coming up, we hope that we will start spreading the word and start looking for it. And Twitter, formerly known as X, formerly known as Twitter. Emma convinced me that she does quite a lot of tweeting on some of her other journals, and has really, really got the word out and got a really double readership here and there for different articles and different journals. And so we'd love you if you're into that. If you're a Twitterer or a tweeter, please do follow us. We'd be delighted. And we also have a thing on LinkedIn, which is quite well responded to and enjoyable for me, which is mainly what I do. LinkedIn. All right, let's move on. 1 second. Can we move? All right. So, first of all, I should start with an apology, really, because a lot of you were expecting a paper, and I did try, but I couldn't. So I thought the next best thing to a paper is a discussion. And what I really want to do for the remaining half an hour is to have a discussion about us, all of us. And a lot of organizations have given their apologies because they were wanting to come and couldn't, like the Fair Trade Advocacy Office. They were very apologetic, the 2 directors there, and so were the WFTO. But there could probably be many more, rectangles in this diagram, because there are so many organizations, regional, international, national, that we could put in. But the real question I've been trying to answer is, are we more than the sum of our parts? We know we're a doing movement. Fair trade is about really amazing efforts to change things for the better and to do things differently. And we know that many of us, especially those of you who've kind of become part of our thinking and our work, we're thinkers too. And we're writers, and we promote that. But are we a thinking and doing? Are we really more than the sum of our parts? Because there's an awful lot of us. So I was trying to look at these questions. How do we communicate? Do we communicate regularly? Do we really share? Do we help each other to get messages out? I'm always genuinely surprised when I see really great things, but I nearly always find them by accident. And maybe it's just me that I'm not a good networker, but I think I'm decent. Do we share ideas? Do we know who's published what? I don't think I do, and I feel bad about that. Do we need things? Could we help each other? Who has a newsletter? Who doesn't have a newsletter? Do we need newsletters? What do we need? How could we be more joined up? And what are our challenges? Can we help each other solve our challenges? Do we need to collaborate? It's such a tired old thing. We got to collaborate, but why? Why should we collaborate, and on what? I'm a practical person. What's stopping us doing it? What are the barriers? What are we individually or collectively missing? And who else should definitely be on this list? And because they're not there, they'll be mad at me. And where should we start? So I've talked to quite a few of you, even though I didn't send the paper. I talked to quite a few of you who are on this list before I put this list up. And I thought we could go round, and some of this is a response to very specific things that I would love to help with, and some of it's a response to my own challenges, of course. But I wonder if we could open up the discussion. We've got half an hour. We can go around. You can all speak. This is a chance for everyone to speak. We've still got 25 people in the room. But Laura, I wanted to invite you first, because part of this trigger was the future of the Fair Trade Institute and the archive that you manage. So I thought I'd put you on the spot first, if that's all right.
Thank you very much, Pauline, and thank you everybody for joining.
Pauline, just quickly, shall I take down the slide, or is it better up?
Do people like the slide with the questions?
It's quite useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's leave it there for now. Yeah.
Okay.
So Pauline's asked me to speak a little bit about the Fair Trade Institute and how it fits into this universe of fair trade, what it may provide, or what it's lacking in terms of some of these questions. Just to be very quick, the Fair Trade Institute is a independent platform that is essentially a searchable bibliography of largely academic publications. It's unique in identifying fair trade scholarship. So, for example, it's different than something like the Evidensia resource list, which the Evidensia resource list is largely organizational reports, blogs, etc. If you search fair trade in Evidensia, at least when I did it, I found 260 items, but in my review, there was almost no overlap between what was on the Evidensia website and the Fair Trade Institute, because the Fair Trade Institute website is more academic. It's populated by the authors themselves who upload their own publication information. What that means is it's spotty, and it was used much more in the past than it is now. If I look at 2021, authors uploaded 11 items that they had published to make them easily accessible to others. In 2022, there was only one item. In 2023, there's only been one item. So clearly it's being underutilized. It stands alone, which has some positive aspects, meaning that it's not guided by the priorities of one particular organization. But if we think about these questions that Pauline has asked, it's standing alone means that it's an underutilized resource, which frankly is not sustainable in a 10-year time horizon because of the lack of institutional support that I have to sustain it. And frankly, speaking to my European colleagues in particular, expecting this to come out of the US, to be maintained out of the US, does not fit with the fractured nature of our fair trade community. So the Fair Trade Institute is a resource. I would love to hear how people would like to use it more, invite people to use it more. If we argue that it's just irrelevant, that's okay. But to the extent to which it can help provide some of the glue in this group or universe of organizations, the key contribution it can make is that link to academic research, which for those of us who are university-based, this is easy. But I still get inquiries, individual emails from scholars all over the world asking me if there's any research on X, because they just don't have the academic facilities to search databases and find these materials.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions from Laura or first, or we can keep going and then we'll open it up. So I wondered if Magdalena, you're here, I can see you. Hello.
Hello.
And you've recently taken over the Fair Trade Reading Club, which I think is so cool, even though I've only attended 2. Do you want to explain what that is? Because people really might not know. And
Right. Hi, everyone. It's really great meeting. So thank you very much for all your contributions, ideas. I learned a lot. Yes, the Fairtrade Essential Reading Club is actually an idea that Sergi Corbaran from FTAO introduced a couple of years ago. And the idea was that academics, practitioners, and all people interested in fair trade will meet together online 3 or 4 times a year and discuss some research results or some publications on fair trade. So the idea is really great, and I'm convinced, I'm really sure that it's also great to collaborate with Fair Trade, Journal of Fair Trade, because on the one hand, we can merge these communities and the people can learn about Journal of Fair Trade. And on the other hand, it's a possibility for the authors of Journal of Fair Trade to present their research results. So I think it would be great if we could collaborate, and also if we could think together, because actually I think it's the same problem as Laura said, how to find the people, how to let them know that such platforms as Fair Trade Institute or Fair Trade Reading Club exist, so that they know and they can join and they can get all those information and share with others. So of course we are also thinking how to approach more people to extend this reading club, because we also were talking a lot during the Fair Trade Symposium. Actually, we all need to meet not once in 2 years, but maybe it would be kind of continuation to meet with all those Fair Trade Symposium members and attendants, just online within the Fair Trade Reading Club. So actually, it would be a great collaboration between Journal of Fair Trade and also Fair Trade Symposium.
Thank you. Well, I know we also have in the room, apart from FTIS people, and I will in a second, I know, just to put you on notice, we have people from Fair Trade Towns here, and I think we have people from Fair Trade International, although there was a note that she had to drop off, but I don't know if that person is back. But let's continue to go around, and I know we have, you know, one of the conveners of Fair Trade Pioneers. We have Bob. Just putting you on notice there, Bob. So let's continue to go around, and let me invite Roberta and Anne to give some comments on these questions and the challenges of the FTIS. Daryl, I know you're here too, and you have a proposal as well. So this is good. Let me open up the floor to the FTIS folk.
And do you want to go first?
I can start the story. I've just put something in the chat to say this is the website of the Fair Trade International Symposium, which is hosted on the FTAO Fair Trade Advocacy Office's site. And I should say that I think one of the key people keeping the FTIS going until the last year or so, Sergey, who Magdalena mentioned earlier. So, and that's one reason why we have the space on the FTAO's website. So it's been a collaboration between FTAO, Fair Trade International, World Fair Trade Organization, and a group of academics. I think it's first started in France, and there is obviously Fairness France that's been a very important part of keeping these conversations going as well. I think I talked last time about some of the history. But when we met at the University of Leeds in June, we've met in person since 2018, so it was a long gap. We had quite a few conversations about the way forward and how much FTIS is about academic work and how much it's about practitioners and academics working together. And some people got the impression or think that it's very, very much about academics, whereas others are thinking, no, this is about partnership and really value that partnership element. So that's, I think, a bit of a debate of what's it for, who's it for. I think we're still maybe still a bit of an existential thing going on, but I think, as we just discussed before about the special issue, there's lots of vibrant, the value of meeting together, as Magdalena said, and creating a space for shared findings was highly valued. And last year in June, it was the first time we'd done an event that was hybrid. We'd done an online only one in 2020. So the hybrid experiment, we think, worked, and we're very pleased that people could join from further away around the world where they've got a good internet connection. So we've had, a number of events. We've had an online event. What we've struggled to do is to sort of keep the dialogue going between events. So I think this is why the Journal of Fair Trade is really important. Why the reading group's really important. And if we can, I think Pauline's point about adding value to each other is absolutely crucial. But as for FTIS, we have struggled to keep these things going between the events, which led to conversations and discussions at the event. Do we want another big event? Do we want a series of events? What can we do to sustain conversations between these events? And to be honest, we don't actually have a plan yet for the next host. So, it's quite, Roberta's here as a representative of the event that was held in Portsmouth in 2018. And I've been involved since the planning for that. Actually, probably been involved since when it was in Liverpool, actually, in 2012. But anyway, so that's our crisis at the moment, is how do we sustain and keep the learning? We can hand on the baton, but we'd like to do more than hand on a baton. We'd like to sustain a conversation. Again, really appreciate this collaboration with the Journal of Fair Trade, because that gives us another platform to share usually interesting debates and findings through the special issue and through meetings like this. Roberta, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Thank you, Anne. No, I absolutely agree with your points. Probably I would just add that from an FTIS perspective, we are very open to ideas and feedback. So if people were keen to get more involved, we would be very, they'd be very welcome. And so you mentioned, Anne, that for the pandemic, we had to move our planned conference that was originally in Mexico at ECOSUR. We had to move it online. That event was quite successful. It was like a short day event that we managed to do in 2020. So if we feel that that is something that the movement as a whole might benefit from, because we know it's expensive and traveling around the world is not the most effective way, but if we wanted to maybe have a more like a yearly, let's say, online conference, that is something that we could think of as having like more of a platform to kind of be in the loop and not lose too much of what's happening, because sometimes I feel that 2 years is quite a lot of time, and there is quite a big gap from the end of one conference where we had a lot of conversations about the future, and then 2 years pass by, and then it seems quite a big gap. So yeah, we're very open to ideas and further collaboration. I think soon with the rest of the FTIS community, we will start probably preparing an application for the next host. So that's something also that's coming up. It seems that we just had this one in June, but actually it will not be too far where we will need to probably in a few months we will need to start thinking at the next one. So yeah, just something else to keep an eye out for.
Thank you so much. All right, so Tadeusz, I know that you're here, or at least I can see your picture. There's a lot to be said about the amazing Fair Trade Towns International Network and all the things that you do. Are you willing?
Yeah, thank you. I work with International Fair Trade Towns Steering Committee for the last 10 years. In fact, I'm also based in Poland, and I run the Polish Fair Trade Association, WFTO member. The International Fair Trade Town campaign, from international perspective, looks like a net kind of movement. However, this is not easy to communicate with more than 2,000 fair trade towns in 36 countries, sending a message from top to down to the grassroots. The steering committee is a kind of lighthouse, mostly for newcomers who want to attend the campaign, and the steering committee delivers them the guidelines for launching campaigns. Delivers its expertise in case of addition of fair trade towns, some adaptation of the goals for the local circumstances. So, in fact, we welcome the steering committee, welcome the initiative of Fair Trade Journal. However, we made a brainstorm. How can we support this valuable idea? And we think we can try to be helpful in disseminating messages, spreading them worldwide. Another issue which I can see which can be useful and helpful. This is the annual event of International Fair Trade Town Conferences, which is organized by the International Steering Committee with local partners. The next conference will be organized in the Republic of South Africa in September 2024, and will be followed by WFTO Biennial Conference. So that can be both opportunities for making visible the Fair Trade Journal initiative, in my opinion.
Thank you so much. I think I love the metaphor of the lighthouse. That's a really fantastic one, and I like it. I would just commend you though, because I would never have attended a Fair Trade Town International conference before COVID. I mean, I'm a member of my Fair Trade Town steering group in my village, right?
Oh yes, you know Bruce Crowther.
But I think what's really important is that having now attended some of your online conferences, I think it's one of the most dynamic bits of our movement. And one of the reasons dynamic is that it's bringing in all sorts of different types of movements that cross over. And that's, I think, of interest to all of us. So I hear you on dissemination and messages, and we should be definitely sharing news about your South Africa events. That's a small thing. We should all be doing that dissemination. Great. I've got Christine on my list. Bob, you don't have to. You can say no. Christine, do you want to say your piece? What do you have?
Okay, so as many of you know, I'm not an academic, but I am a networker. So this is my dream. So I just I was thinking, I'm a member of the Chartered Society of Designers, and I joined as a student. I was offered free membership while I was a student, and then when I finished being a student, I had to pay. And I just thought that was a very interesting model, and it kind of ties everything together, because there's the fair trade towns, like I'm a member of my fair trade town, as we all are, and we always want to get new students in, and they always stay for 3 years, and then they go, and then it goes on all again. But if we could get maybe particularly master students to sign up to be members of the Fair Trade Journal, and I don't know, in some way, obviously they'll, something similar. They could also be tied into the Fair Trade Town movement at the same time. I think that might be a really nice way of bringing some more people in getting the Fairtrade Town and the academic pieces put together. And I just suggesting that. And the other piece is having also been involved with PTs a lot since 2012. And as an academic, why are we producing academic pieces? We're producing academic pieces because we want to have facts that we can quote, and we can take them back to implement, and we can share them with people who want to question fair trade. So it's inevitable, to my mind, that any academic symposium needs to have those amplifiers, engage with them, otherwise to make it work meaningful. Because to be amplified, we need to use this information. So that's my 2 pence.
Thank you, Christine. Bob, I'm not going to coerce you. I've got 2 Bobs. I've seen Bob Thompson too, which is fantastic. Hello, Bob. 2 Bobs. Bob, you've been convening us recently. That's why I was thinking of you.
I'm not sure I have much to add, Pauline. This has been great for me to learn more about what you're doing with the Fair Trade Journal and this community. I guess the thing that I've been thinking about is I've been hearing from more and more fair trade colleagues who are practitioners about their struggles, and many of them questioning whether fair trade is actually a viable business model. And certainly the recent demise of Peopletree UK leaving a number of their suppliers with huge debts has contributed to that concern. And so I certainly have to think about how the academic work you're doing is contributing to informing the practitioners in their struggles.
That's a good question. I'm not going to answer that. We can come back to that. Thank you. We've still got quite a bunch of people here, and it's a discussion. So please just speak up. I won't pick on anybody else. How about that?
I just had a quick one for Laura. When we were looking at the Fair Trade Institute and the bibliography and the uploads that have been going into it. It's something that at the very beginning, on the outset of the Journal of Fair Trade, we did have a system, but I'm afraid to say it is lapsed. And the system was that when authors were published, we then sent them a follow-up email to say, this is the Fair Trade Institute, and this is the bibliography, and this is how you sign up to upload your articles. So, Pauline, we were doing that.
Yes.
We should be doing that as a matter of course for every single, well.
Yes, we should.
So, yeah. That's a note to myself to get that system. Just a quick chat with you, Pauline, we'll get running again.
Yep. Should we let's put the slide down so we can, I can see everybody without having a column.
Yeah.
That's all right.
1 second.
I would just interject, Ellie, thank you for suggesting that. And what would be very interesting is, and perhaps we can talk about this, is to use, to be able to do an analysis of when those articles are put up on the Fair Trade Institute site, how much more does it increase their visibility, right? Because that's a way to measure, is this type of platform still important? Does it add value to the and visibility to the Fair Trade Journal or not? And frankly, as an academic with huge numbers of resources as ways to search things, the or not is really a viable, I mean, possibly the answer. But I feel like for different kinds of groups who have less facility with searches, I don't want to undercut a resource by assuming that it's irrelevant. So it would be very interesting to track and say, well, has it helped? How much has it helped? If it hasn't helped, don't worry about it. Don't do it. So let's talk more about that.
Yeah, let's
because-
do a test. Yep.
I mean, on that, Laura, I suppose, are there any reports that can be output from the bibliography itself, from its side?
I think so, but here's where I have to admit I'm technologically challenged. The idea of me running a website is hysterical. But I do have a graduate student who's very good. And I will ask her what kind of, I know we can get how many people went to the website. What they did after that, I don't know whether we can actually capture.
Yeah.
So that would be a question.
Some report on the metrics for recent years.
Right.
Would be brilliant.
Yeah.
Patrick, I saw your hand. Hello.
Thanks, Pauline. Well, I was very involved in fair trade, but for the last few years, I've been a bit removed from it. So I'm a bit of an outlier in a sense. But picking up on Bob and Christina's points, the question that's been rattling around in my mind is, do we have a clear overarching objective or objectives? Clearly, we want to be a top-class disseminator of information, disseminator of research, in a sense, I suppose, a think tank. But shouldn't it be far broader than that? Because it seems to me that the fair trade movement has lost a bit of impetus amongst consumers, and I speak purely from the consumer point of view. And I maybe that's because we're victims of our own success. But I would hope that the Journal of Fair Trade, while focusing on research and the dissemination of research, is also thinking about how to use that research to get more publicity. And also, if we get more publicity, to bring more people into the fold, as it were. And excuse me, with the ultimate objective of creating more consumer awareness and to keep the momentum with fair trade. So that's my two pennies worth.
Well, thank you for grounding us, Patrick, and also grounding me, because I originally started the journal as an effort to reboot fair trade, and I think it needs it more than ever, more than it did in 2018. So there you go. I think that might be about content as well as a better communications, shared events, calendars, all sorts of things, getting more people involved and targeting certain audiences like Christine's suggestion. Okay, anybody else?
Pauline.
Yay!
I might, at this stage, go back to something we're able to talk with a few people briefly about in Leeds, was whether it makes sense for us to actually convert some or a lot of what we do into a formal scholarly organization. And there's a number of reasons for doing this, I think, but a particular type of scholarly organization, because we are not like political scientists or sociologists or economists, especially. If we have a parallel with any other society, it would be cooperative societies. So cooperatives are very good at organizing. They organize along sectors, they organize along geographic regions, they organize along practitioners, they organize academics. So they're very well networked. And they also, like people in the fair trade movement, don't really respect lines between knowledge generation and knowledge transmission and knowledge application. I want to do all of those. So historically in the cooperative movement, you've had academics who are leaders of cooperative movements, entire cooperative movements like the Antigonish movement. We can think about Fabians, if we want to call them, involved in cooperatives, different. And also in the South as well, Now, for the academics, it's really important for us to justify what we do, our daytime jobs. So we need to be members of professional associations. We need to publish in certain places. We need to publish in journals that are in Scopus indices. We need to do all of these things. And a scholarly network or association gives us some legitimacy. With people in our own institutions, if we need to buy funds to go to a conference, if we need to get small research grants, we can say we're part of this. So different things we can get funds for, to the degree that we actually have connections through scholarly organizations. It looks especially good if they're international scholarly organizations. And then also if you're sitting on the boards of scholarly organizations, you're doing service and things like this. So this is a very important thing for scholars to be involved in, because we are academics, in addition to the role that many of us are also sort of activists and public intellectuals as well. But in the cooperative movement, we've had this nice inflow from the practitioners and other public intellectuals who've written, who've been engaged. And so what you'll see in many cooperative societies, and in Canada, you know, our research society sits on the board of Cooperatives and Mutuals Canada. So we have direct knowledge to the apex bodies there as well. When there's joint conferences, we also make sure we at least have some presence at all the major confidence research sessions. We tack those on to national conferences. We did that the International Year of the Co-ops and things, all these international conferences, but also at national conferences as well. Now, we don't have the same level of infrastructure in the fair trade world as we do, but we do have the possibility, as different people have been talking about, how we organize our scholarly conferences along with practitioners conferences. We overlap these things so that we have access. We can bring people together in different venues because we need to be talking. This provides those types of avenues, but also in terms of all the things we're doing. If you have an international society, then you can sort of encourage membership from different countries. So, you know, telling countries that we need a certain national representation from them, right? It's easier to pull people in if you have these organizations. And it really helps a lot that way. We can leverage that a little bit more. And we can, through that, we can also distribute the work a little bit more, right? So if, as Laura was saying, she needs somebody to help work on that, the more people we have sitting around the table from different places, the more resources we have to do some of those things. So that Laura says we need to do this. Well, maybe we need somebody from Latin America who can help us load up all the Latin American publications, which we don't even know about, right? So I think having an international scholarly society, which is run much more along the way cooperative societies are, where they have connections with practitioner organizations, whether they're sectoral, whether they're regional, national, and things, and representation from them as well. It's a really good model and sort of just formalizes a lot of what we're already trying to do, I think. And it puts us in good stead with other stakeholders, because then they know where to go if they want to do things. And it gives us more legitimacy when we go to other organizations to ask for help. So if there's an international fair trade society, an academic body that's talking to FTAO or other organizations, or even other professional associations we want to collaborate with, I think it looks a lot better that way. So I'll just leave that there.
Oh, I was just going to say very quickly, like on LinkedIn, we did a little bit of work with looking at some of the articles and trying to promote them, and looking at groups that were related to those articles. So we did a little bit, and I linked Pauline to some groups. So we've got, for example, ASM, artisanal and small scale mining, which was related to one of the articles. And then we looked at others, which were Gender in Agriculture Partnership, GAP, And just so there seems to be, I mean, LinkedIn is quite useful for accessing these groups. If we're not forming the group ourselves, but we're linking to them, for example, linking our authors to particular groups. Sorry to interrupt. It was just a quick thought in terms of groups that already exist that we're linked to, but it's a different way of looking at it.
Okay, I see still on my screen, we've got a few more minutes, but we'll stop in a second. So many people who are really, really good at organizing cooperatively and otherwise. I think it's such a challenge, and I think Anne has just written something very there's a challenge in bringing us together, right? And having brought people together who were not inclined to cooperate in the past, I often think it's better to find things that we know add value and can help each other. So I think what I'd like to do is to follow up this meeting with, I'll just schedule them in 2 or 3 meetings. I'll put the dates out there and you can come when you want. And I think we should explore those practical things, because that helps people collaborate, share, reinforce others, because they can, right? Not necessarily and only because it benefits them. I think we just need to find a way to start making it work. I would like to try for a few small, they're very, very small grants, just so that I could bring some resources in. Our money is managed by Pluto Journals, but we have a pot for us, and then at the moment what's needed for production and the hard costs of producing the journals, you know, is absorbed quite quickly, but we have money of our own in theory. And I think, you know, the proof of the pudding, I think we should just try and keep talking about it. So this sort of constant dialogue thing is good. It's not the same as meeting in person, but at least we can crack on with a few things. When whoever's in the room, we can try and do something and decide something and then share it and build a consensus about the priorities. I think, Daryl, is really important. What you're saying is really important. But for me, there's so many organizations out there and they don't collaborate. So let's have one more. And maybe it's I thought that FTIS was a kind of society. So I think it's a good idea. I don't know, right? I'm just saying, what is it if it's not that? So, I think we should just carry on and nail some things down, if that's all right. So I think what I'll do is I'll bite the bullet, much as Bob did with some of the sort of fair trade pioneers, in a kind of series of conversations, which I felt were very helpful and informative. I didn't really know how to contribute because it was all a bit depressing, but I think we should just keep talking, and then maybe by May, because we meet every 6 months, so the next one will be May the 9th. So we can predict it. It's not quite the first week because it's public holiday in most countries on the planet. But I think if that's all right, it's not an obligatory thing. I'll schedule them at different times in different different time zones, so people can come and not have to get up in their pajamas and things. So that would be good. Those of you who haven't spoken, I'm sorry, but I know quite a few of you, and you would help us a lot, but maybe you could show up and help us next time. Any final words? Anybody want to say anything and help us close the meeting?
No, I was just thinking, Pauline, that May seems quite a long way from today. It seems quite far in the future. And
no, I was thinking we should try and meet before May. So if I throw some dates out to everybody and say, open conversation on this topic, pick one or pick all between now and May, so that next time we meet, we're kind of more advanced. We've got some real propositions.
Right.
And in the meantime, we can look at what we can offer each other or not.
I think it's
Yes, and I think it's really important to catch your question, because I like this question very much. Are we much more? We are much more together than part of us. So it's a long process, very difficult, because we really have different needs and different expectations, and also a lot of other difficulties, but it's a process. And when we start it, then we are on a good path.
Thank you. All right, I will find some dates, you know, sort of at the beginnings and ends of people's days in different parts of the world. There we go. Look, thank you so much. It's been a very intense session. Wasn't quite what I wanted, but what I had originally planned when we last met and I promoted this event, but I really wanted to get stuck into open access because it's a really big political thing for all of us, and it's got so much potential but lots of challenges. So please feel free to get in touch with any of us with any of your questions or thoughts. We will write everything up. We're going to save the chat and we'll integrate the chat into the report, because as always there's good stuff in the chat that wasn't in the meeting. And thank you all for your ideas and for your support. As Ellie put it so eloquently, you know, we really value it and it helps us keep going. So I will wish you all farewell and good night.
Thank you so much, Pauline. It was
Bye.
really
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ellie.
Bye.